This conversation finds us in the book of Matthew, the gospel according to Apostle Matthew, chapter 12, verse 36 and verse 37. Now, throughout the Bible, we see Jesus walking through the land, communicating with everyone. I mean, Jesus has a word for everyone, and he's uplifting, he's encouraging, he's motivating, he's inspiring. Jesus is trying to make sure that we all realize that he's fighting on our behalf, that he's come to make sure that we understand the truth. And so he's not mixing his words. He's just laying it down like it is. He's not trying to sugarcoat it. He's not trying to pacify us. He's just speaking life into each and every one of us. I made the statement before that Jesus reminds me of my mother. My mother was a communicator, and she would always pour into anyone who listened to her. But God reminds me of my father. My father was disciplined. Yes, my father was well structured. My father didn't let you have an opinion. His word was the word. And that's the way God and Jesus is to me. I mean, they're all one, but God is direct. Jesus will try to give you a parable to try to make it make more sense to you. And here we are in Matthew chapter 12, verse 36. We have Jesus talking to his disciples, Jesus talking to the Pharisees. And they're asking a question in chapter 12, verse 1. The Pharisees they're asking Jesus, why is it that your disciples are eating corn on the Sabbath when you know it's not lawful? Jesus makes a statement back to them, but you do remember that David, when he was hungry and the people with him, they did go into the Lord's house and eat the showbread. But they were so into tradition that they couldn't break it. So we find ourselves in verse 36. Watch this. Watch what Jesus is saying because it's so important. I told you, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, they were just asking him tons and tons of questions, trying to trick him. That's all it was. It was trying to make him say something that he shouldn't say. How many of you know that in your life, in your lifetime, Jesus is always on point? I pray that you can gravitate toward that on pointness yourself. I pray that you can be on point with things that you're saying, things that you're doing, because Jesus is watchful for what he says. Because if Jesus calls something what it's not, it becomes what he calls it. And so he has to be careful with his words. If the sky is blue and Jesus said it's pink, it's pink. It becomes what he says it is. And so in verse 36, listen to what Jesus is saying. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. Jesus said, I have to give account for what I'm saying. And so you're going to be accountable, man, for everything that you say. So he makes a statement that every idle word, listen to that, idle word. Idle mean lazy. Every no thought, no care, no sense of reasoning. Every idle word that man shall speak, they shall give account for. Everything you're saying, you're going to give account for. Verse 37, for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. We are going to be held accountable for everything that's coming out of our mouths. And so make your words, watch this, make your words count. Because every single word you speak is being counted. Let me say it again. Make every word that you speak count. Because every word that you speak is being counted for you, yes, condemning you, or it's judging you, yes, it's justifying you. Every single word. You have to be accountable for what's coming out of your mouth because it's being documented. Yes, every single word. This little word that I really want to focus on is called idle, I-D-L-E. And when you look at the word idle, it's really just simply someone who's lazy. That's all it is. Someone who's lazy. Someone who spends time doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. Someone who's idled. We made the statement, idle mind or idle hands or a devil's workshop. That's what idleness is. I pray that you're not having idle lips, that you're not the devil's mouthpiece, because he uses those who are idle. I want to dig a little bit more deep into that word idle. But it's someone who's lazy, someone who procrastinates, someone who's complacent. Just give you a few words. Someone who settles, someone who's unproductive, someone who's self-satisfied, someone who wastes time, energy, and effort, someone who wastes every opportunity that they've ever been given. You've seen people like that. You might have fallen in that category. Have you ever seen someone and you look at them, they're not doing anything, not accomplishing anything, and you look at them, and you just make the statement, that's the wasted life. That's like wasted space here on this earth. I mean, some people is in that category. I mean, that's kind of sad, but that's just so true. And then some of you have so much pride, and that's idleness. Yes, when you get into your pride, oh, that's you full of yourself. And some of you full of your ego, edging God out. And some of you are just simply ungrateful. Those idle words coming from your idle lips, it means that you have no substance. Someone is talking, and if you're not careful, you're listening to them. They're talking for almost 15 minutes, and they haven't said nothing of value. They're just simply talking, going around in circles, being negative, putting someone down. That's all they're doing, instigating. See, that's idleness. And the Lord is telling you, He don't want you idle, because idleness is like lukewarm. Yes, you're just right in the middle. You're always neutral. I mean, you won't take sides. You're lukewarm. And Jesus made it clear. I'd rather you be hot or cold than lukewarm. I'd rather you make your decision versus just wavering on the sideline. not in the game, just over there on the sideline, talking all that noise, but never getting in the game of life and really playing this thing the way it should be played. Don't become lukewarm. Don't be idle in your own life, because that means you're just loafing. That means you're taking things for granted. That's what that means. That means that you have no care of what's really happening around you. You see, idleness to me is like me getting up in the morning and I'm sitting on the side of my bed. When I get up and I'm trying to get my thoughts together, I'm collecting my thoughts, if you will. I'm just sitting there and praying and just kind of thinking about my schedule for today, and let my body kind of wake up, if you will. And then I go outside and I start my car and I let it sit for a few minutes and I just run. We call it idling. I let it just run and warm up a little bit before I take it and put it in drive. Just let it warm up so all the fluids can run through the body, run through the engine, if you will. That's kind of like your flesh. That vehicle, that engine is running. And if I'm sitting in it, watch this. It's something that's moving, but I'm sitting inside of it and I'm not moving. Let me say it again. Have you ever seen someone sitting and moving at the same time? Or have you ever seen someone moving and sitting at the same time? Let me tell you what I'm saying. The engine is running, but the car is not moving because you haven't put it in gear. Now, your life is just like this car. Your heart is beating, and you're just standing in a position, and your head is not thinking of anything as far as you moving forward or moving backwards. You're just standing there idle. And that's where some of you are right now. In your life, you're just idle. You're not doing anything productive. You're not. You're just walking around, allowing things to happen, hoping things happen, wishing things happen. You're just walking around idle-minded. And idle mind is the devil's workshop. So be very careful being idle, because what happens is your flesh is controlling your every thought, your every move. Yeah, your flesh is trying to take the steering wheel of your life and drive you. Now, if you had any, what I call common sense, you'd make sure that you let your spirit take the steering wheel and drive your life. You'd make sure that your spirit is increased in your life to where your flesh becomes decreased in your life. See, that's the idleness of your life. It's your flesh. There's nothing good in it, but we give so much attention to it. And if you're not careful, it will not only run your life, it will ruin your life. So watch this. You see a young lady, and here we are with this flesh, and she's a pretty young lady. And your flesh is telling you, hey, go over and talk to her. Go over and get her number. Go over and try to pull her. Now, you're married with children, and that is a no-no. But your flesh is trying to provoke you to go over and do this thing because she's a pretty lady. And your flesh is, hold up, your flesh is heating up like your car when it's warming up in idle mode. I told you your flesh is idle. Yeah, it's idleness. It's not good for anything. And it's those words that Jesus was saying. You want to be careful with those type of words, idleness, yeah, because those words will get you in trouble. But here your spirit is, and your spirit is pulling you and saying, hey, no, don't do that. But you've got your spirit on idle, and you've got your flesh in active mode. Your spirit needs to always be in active mode. And this flesh that we live in, this flesh, yeah, that houses our spirit and our soul, this thing needs to be put in idle mode, this flesh, 24/7, because it will do what it wants to do. It will just chase its desires. And most of those desires are wrong. Most of those desires are not good for you. They might feel good for 5 or 10 minutes, but you've ruined your whole life because you wouldn't put your flesh on idle mode. You see, your spirit is talking to you. Your spirit is saying, that young lady, that's a beautiful young lady. But your spirit will make you say things like, that's my daughter, or that's my sister in the Lord. And see, your spirit will arrest your flesh, and your spirit will make you go minister to that young lady versus trying to make her your mistress. You heard me. It will make you minister to her versus trying to make her your mistress. Yeah, yeah. Your mistake, your misunderstanding. That's what you get yourself into. But your spirit will check you. Yes. It won't try to control you. It just will simply give you the best options. If you pay attention to it, if you're in tune with your spirit, man. Most of you have your spirit on idle. Yeah, you have your spirit in park. And you're giving the steering wheel of your life to your flesh. Let me tell you something. If you're not careful, this flesh will drive you versus you driving it. If you're not careful. Because your words have so much power. And if you're not going to use them wisely, then you're being idle. There are so many causes that we can fight in this world. And some of us are just sitting back being idle, not saying anything. Look at the church. We see the church now being in what I call idle mode. There's so many movements, so many causes that have went forward, and we find the church coming behind it, supporting it. Not being in front of it, yeah, being proactive, yes, coming out of idle mode and being the leader. No, we see the church following now. And that's a bad representation of Jesus Christ. But that's what's happening. We want to be very careful of being followers and not leaders in this particular area. No, we need to be leading. Because if we're not leading, then this world is bleeding and it's being defeated. That's what's happening. And we're just being pulled along. Yeah, like the solar system. We're being pulled along. Like gravity is pulling us along. And we're just jumping on every cause because guess what? We're like a dog trying to chase a bone. Your language that you're using, that foul language, as if you don't have enough words in your mouth to use to express yourself. See, when you become idle, that means you're lazy. And so you pick up the first words that come to your mind. That's your flesh. And you start cussing people out, fussing people out. You see it all the time. Look at social media. Look at all the cursing that's going on. All the cussing, as my mama would say. Look at all the things that you're watching on TV. You used to couldn't say a cuss word. Now you can cuss as much as you want to. That's because we become lazy. We become common with one another. And we've got this lackadaisy attitude and everything goes. No, what that is, that's idleness. That's that lukewarmness I'm talking about. I told you, Jesus is nowhere in the mix of lukewarmness, but that's what's happening all around us. Our words are so powerful. Their meaning has what I call crystallized perceptions that, watch this, shape our, if you will, our belief system, that shapes our behavior system, if you will, that drives us. And ultimately, watch this, your words begin to create your world. That's what your word does. It begins to create the environment that you're living in, the culture that you're living in. That's how powerful your words are. If I was in a court case, I want an attorney who's not living in a idle modeness, if you will. I want an attorney who's well-read, who's well thought of, attorney who knows his or her job, attorney who applies their knowledge, not an attorney who's like a public defender, who's on the sideline, who's tagged in. It's the last minute, and they're in an idle mode. They have no idea about my case, and I'm looking at 2 to 20 years. Oh no, I need somebody who's fighting on my behalf. I need someone who's standing up, who has the knowledge, yeah, to woo the jury, if you will. If you got the right attorney, that 2 to 20 can become probation. But you've got to have the right attorney. You don't need someone who's in idle mode, who take your case and just take it on as pro bono or whatever they might take it on and don't do a good job for you. That's 20 years. I don't need that in my life. I need people who are active, people who are proactive. You've been dating this young lady for 5, 10 years, and you never once proposed to her. And the reason you haven't is because you're getting all the benefits a married man gets. And so you don't have to propose to her. Ladies, listen to me. If you want him to propose, if you need him to move on, then you need to give him an ultimatum. Because right now he's in idle mode. He's happy. He got his cake in his pie. You're giving it to him way too fast. So this is what you need to do. Put your flesh on idle mode. He can't mess with your flesh. He can't touch your flesh until he proposes, until he has, until he's bent down on one knee and he's proposing. You're giving him way too much of yourself. And so why should he do anything? No, put your flesh on idle mode. He's been in idle mode on the proposal. Put him in idle mode with your flesh. And watch that brother bend. Watch him start twerking and quirking for you. Don't give up so much of yourself so fast. When we look at sin, sin has placed all of us on idle mode. And that's something we were born into when you think about it. But sin is so damaging that it places us on idle mode because sin distracts you from your purpose. And so what sin does, sin moves you over here when you should be over here. Sin always distracts you by giving you something that you shouldn't be messing with. And this flesh desires to enjoy this. Your spirit should be pulling you more, towards your purpose. But for most of us, I'm just saying for most of us, we're so caught up into our flesh that we can't see the distraction because that fleshly desire is so big and so powerful in our lives. Satan wants you to stay in idle mode. It's kind of like Job. Remember the story about Job and the Lord had a hedge of protection around Job? Satan has a hedge around you. And that's why he's got you idled. And you think that you're doing so well because you've got a new car, you've got a nice house, you've got a nice job. You see, Satan blesses those, well, I don't call it a blessing, but Satan takes care of those who's his. And so he doesn't have to spend any time with you because he's got you. He's got you hedged in. And you're idled because you've been distracted for what's real and what's not. When you see our country go to wars, and you say, well, we're going over to free those people. This is a great cause for mankind. No. See, that's idle modeness thinking. As a matter of fact, that's idle mode brainwashing, if you will. We're being distracted. We never go to war to free people. We go to war to take over the resources in that land. That's what we've done. I mean, wake up and smell the coffee. That's what happens. But we get ourselves in such a state that we just live in this idled world, if you will. Look at your marriage. It's been said that when two married people get ready to divorce, it's because all communication had stopped, had ceased. No, that's not really the real reason. It's because your flesh, yes, her flesh, seen something she desired, and so she put her marriage on idle mode, and she gave more attention to that she desires. His flesh, yes, went into idle mode. He's seeing something that he desired more than his marriage. And so they both went their opposite ways. See, it's not about communication. It's about this flesh, yes, not being on idle. It's about this flesh putting your spirit on idle while it goes out and pleases itself. That's what's happening. Can you feel me? I mean, can you feel what I'm saying? We're giving way too much attention to this flesh. Do you have anything in your system that alerts you when you've been on idle mode way too long? See, that should be the Holy Spirit inside of you. Yeah, tapping on your heart, telling you, hey, Donnie, wake up, Donnie, stop doing this. If you don't have anything inside of you, then you're just giving yourself away. You're giving yourself to the devil. In 1 Thessalonian chapter 5, verse 17, it tells us to pray without ceasing. You see, if you pray without ceasing, if you're fasting, you're always feeding your spirit, man. And so your spirit is never on idle mode. No. It's got your flesh suppressed. It's subduing it. It's keeping it, yes, it's keeping it decreasing so that it can continue to increase. I told you, don't give the steering wheel to your flesh. No, you better give a steering wheel. You better give your spirit permission to drive your life. Don't ever give, watch this. Your flesh is a visiting team. That's what it is. Your spirit is the home team. And so your home team always has advantage. Do not give, yes, the visiting team permission, Yes, to drive your life. Put it on idle mode, like you do everything else that you don't like. Job made it very clear that he would not cuss God. He says, I don't care what you do. Yeah, take my kids away, take my land away, take my money away, but I'm not going to put my relationship with God on idle mode. I'm going to keep it, watch this, I'm going to keep it intact because I got my spirit, yes, active. We need to make sure that we put our spirit in control of our lives. We need to make sure that we know how to park our flesh to the side. So many of us have become lukewarm. No, stay hot for the Lord. Stay on fire for the Lord. King David put his, watch this, he put his flesh, yes, in control. He put his spirit on idle mode and committed adultery. Jonah put his spirit on idle mode when he refused to go to Nineveh and preach the word. But when we see Paul just has a different ministry. Paul just different than most of us. Paul had a thorn in his flesh. He had this pain in his flesh. And most theologians said it wasn't a pain or a thorn. It was a demon that would vex him from time to time because God wanted to make sure that all the anointing, yes, that he had given Paul was a bad man, that all the blessings he had given Paul, he wanted to make sure that Paul knew it wasn't himself, that it was God. And so Paul wasn't in idle mode. No, he wasn't. Paul was always active, praying and fasting and seeking God. And I don't want a demon, but I do want that prayer life. I do want that fasting life. Yeah, I want to put my flesh on idle without getting that pain that Paul had to receive. I sure don't want a demon chasing me, trying to keep me before the Lord. I just want to be able to do it because I love God so much and because he can trust me. But Paul said it was good that he had this pain, this thorn, this demon vexing him because it kept him humble. See, that's where we need to be. We don't need to be a busybody because busybody is words being loosely used. Yes, it's you saying, I have no filter. Like some of you don't have a filter and you think it's okay. It's not okay. The Bible tells us you're going to be judged. You're going to be condemned by the words that you're using. So I pray that you get this. I pray that you get that your idle words, yeah, those are words that's being used loosely. Those are words that you just throw out like it's no big deal. The Lord is saying, Donnie, I'm writing that stuff down. Yeah, all that texting you're doing, yeah, all that stuff on social media, you're texting and putting out there in the airwaves. God said, I'm documenting that stuff. They think it's just floating away, but I'm grabbing that stuff. And on Judgment Day, yeah, that stuff is going to be brought before you. It's going to justify you or it's going to condemn you. Do you hear the words coming out of my mouth? I pray you get this. I pray you realize the greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. But we've all been fooled. We've all been tricked. We've all been bamboozled, if you will, to thinking that the more we speak, the more we talk, or the more we can get over it. No. You better start speaking less and start listening more. You better start applying yourself more. Because if the Lord is not speaking through you, watch this. If he's not saying yay, and nay, the Lord tells us that then more than likely your language is just full of evilness. Do you hear me? The Lord is saying if you're talking way too much, more than likely, it's not right. More than likely, it's of the devil. Yes, Lord, bless me to use few words. Bless my words to count because I know they're being counted. Bless everything that I say. Let it be something that motivates someone, that builds someone, that encourages someone. Let it be words that inspire someone. But don't let it be words that harm or hurt. Yes, or words that humiliate. I don't want words like that. I want words of humility in my life. So, Father, yes, birth that in me. Yeah, birth the words that when I use them, they're accountable. Yes, when I use them, I don't mind you writing them down. I don't mind you documenting them because they are words that Jesus Christ has taught me how to use. They're words that I have labored in, that's righteous and that's just. So, Father, I just pray that everything that I'm saying, that I'm speaking, that, Father, that I wash it through the Holy Spirit that's inside of me. Yeah, that I filter it through. Yes, I do have a filter. Yeah, I want this filter, the Holy Spirit that lives within me. I pray that you have that same filter. Let your words from this day be words that has substance to them. In the book of Colossians, chapter 4, verse 6, let your speech be always with grace. Wow, dignity. Yes, honor. Wow. Seasoned with salt. Yes, Lord. Let it be purified. Let it be just, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man. Isn't that something? That my words are full of grace, that I measure what I say before I say it, that it's seasoned, it has wisdom in it. And that when I speak it, yes, my words, guess what? They're just not bland. My words have substance to it. They're not idle words. I pray that yours are not as well. I pray this day that you're not idle, because every last one of you who've not given your life to Jesus Christ, you're living an idle life, and you're going to be judged based on that idleness in your life. So if you want to wake up and be justified, here we go. Let's read Romans 10:9. It says, confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord. Let's not just read it. Let's believe it. Let's receive it. Confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, and you too shall be saved. Now, those are words that are not idle. Those are words that are living and moving. And if I'm going to speak anything to you, let that be your account, that one day you gave your life to Jesus Christ. See, that's the judgment. You can stand before God and be honorable and have your head high. Yes. Every word will either justify you or condemn you. Which words do you choose this day? You'll be blessed.